We are. Okay, and we are recording. So I'm super pumped about this call topic and just really helping you guys with some things that aren't necessarily like our business building topics that we've been talking about. And so I wanted to partner with Kristan. She is actually our personal financial advisor. We've worked with her for years. And as most of you guys know, I actually was a recruiter for Northwestern Mutual before this, worked for them for almost 4 years. And I just really love knowing how my money works, what I can and cannot be doing, and really how powerful it can be to plan. And so I have loved learning everything from Kristan. She's just like us, you guys. She is a powerhouse entrepreneur. She actually has 2 littles. We were pregnant at the same time with our last. It has been a blast getting to know her. She lives actually here in Pensacola, which is only 40 minutes from me. She has so many designations in different I don't know what the word would be in layman's term of designations, but she's mastered a lot of different classes and things in the financial realm, and she's very smart. So write down your questions, drop them in the chat. She has a presentation she's going to walk through with us to just educate us, but she wants you guys to ask questions and be interactive. So drop them in the chat and I can help her facilitate some of those questions. So without further ado, I would love to introduce Kristan to us, or have her take over.
Hi. Great. Here, I'm going to share my screen. There's a lot of y'all. I'm a little nervous. I'm just joking. Here's like Erica said, I love Erica. We were just saying I wish she lived, 40 minutes isn't that far, but I wish she lives like down the street. Probably like a lot of y'all wish Erica lived down the street from you. So, but I'm partners, like Erica said, with Brinkley Wealth Strategies Group with Northwestern Mutual. I've been an advisor for almost 13 years. And so, yeah, so I thought we'd talk today about women and money. And I'm going to go through a presentation, but please ask questions. Feel free to unmute yourself, that we'll make this as interactive as possible. This is our team. My husband's there. I work with my husband too. So, combined, we have over 160 years of an experience. Here's my littles. Like Erica said, I have a 4-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And like probably all of y'all, I came home and in an hour, I was potty training. Someone fell and was bleeding. And I'm like, I have a cold, like quit bleeding. And the baby was screaming. So I work with my husband, Mike. I love just tidbits about me, but I love workout classes. I love Zaya, like so much. Erica hooked me up and I got some leggings and I trained for a 15K and I actually ran in my Zaya leggings and they were so great because they helped keep my belly in from my postpartum belly. And so it was nice to keep my core tight. I really like wearing them. And the other thing I love to talk about is money. So I'm a certified financial planner, love what I do, and work a lot with young families, just like you guys, helping them plan. But the other thing is because my business partner, Tom, he's in his 60s. I also work a lot with retirees. And what's nice about that is I get to see, okay, here's what they've done right, or here's what they wish they would have done. So today I have some rules. And so you'll notice the slides I made myself compared to the Northwestern slides because they look like this. But anyway, so rules for today is you cannot make yourself feel bad. Majority of women say their number one stressor is money. And so what I don't want you to come away from today is to feel any type of shame or negative self-talk. Last year was a year for all of us, 2020. So if it was a hard year and maybe you don't understand your budget or what anything's happening right now, that is okay. Like we just are going to come to this space where we're at, and please don't, I hope you walk away feeling like you have some tips to get going, but no shame. So no shame in the financial game. So I thought today we'd hit on some unique challenges that women face with money, a roadmap of how to start a financial plan, and just tips to get started today. Cool. Any questions? Okay, cool. So there's three main challenges nationwide with women and money. And the first is that women often earn less than men. And so right now, really, but when this was written, women earned 82 cents of every dollar a man made. And now they project after 2020 and the amount of jobs lost in the recession is what they call it, we're actually going to revert back to 1988 numbers, and we're going to earn 76 cents to every dollar that a man makes. But what's interesting about me talking to you girls is y'all are a lot like me, and we can be really that anomaly to change that figure, because a lot of entrepreneurs, like all of us on this call, have the ability to have an unlimited income potential. And so we can help change that statistic. And I read every article I can get on this recession right now, but a lot of people feel really optimistic about how this is going to change how we view working moms and working women, and allowing more people to work from home and have businesses that they run from home. Things that you girls were already doing before 2020, or you might have started doing in 2020. So, but in general, women earn less than men. The second thing is women are often caregivers. So in the US, 75% of all caregivers are women, and we're doing it more than 6 hours a day. So that can be caring for littles, or like my mom, she's caring for her mom that's in an assisted living facility. And so what that equates to is, I read a statistic that women spend, even working moms, spend 2 hours more than their spouse does on invisible work, like housework and, cleaning and kid stuff, 2 hours more on average. And so if you take that times 365 days, that ends up being 4.5 months of a 40-hour job. So a lot of times women are working, your full-time job, and then, another full-time job when you come home with caregiving. And the last challenge around women and money is we usually generally live longer. So and if you go to any assisted living facility, you would see that women actually, it's usually a lot women compared to guys. So where am I going with all of this on these challenges? So we inherently sometimes earn less, live longer. And what's happened is actually in 2015, women now hold more wealth in America than men do. And how does that happen? Well, we're living longer. So these big retirement accounts that the boomers, or even our grandparents' age, are transferring to the spouse, to the female spouse. And so why that becomes important, and kind of a starting point, and why I'm passionate about talking about money with women, is we can feel very overworked right now. And I didn't really get it till I was a mom, but it can be easy sometimes to delegate the finances to our husband, to say, or our spouse, whoever wins, but to say, okay, they're going to handle that because I'm handling literally everything else. And so, and that's really, really easy to do. But the problem with that can be that at any point you might have to take over those finances. And statistically saying, at some point you will have to take over them. And the other thing, like I said, it's the number one cause of stress. And it's sometimes the number one reason people fight in a marriage is money. And so I'm a big believer in delegating tasks that you can, but I wouldn't say delegate all of the financial planning. Like my husband pays all of our bills. I don't need to be in the nitty gritty of sometimes those details. But when we sit down to do our full financial planning, I like, obviously, because I do it, but like I like to be involved in those conversations. So if we're going to start a plan, so like where do you start? The first thing I would say is the first step is to understand what's coming in and what's going out. So it's not, and again, I say judgment-free zone here. What I like to do is look back at maybe a 3-month expenses or 3-month credit card statement, bank statement. I wouldn't count in December, but maybe do October, November, and January, or September, October, November of last year. Just get an idea of what came in the door and then what went out. And you again, judgment free. This isn't where you're like, what did you buy at Target? You know, it's really meant to just start seeing where that money is going. And if you happen, I know a lot of you girls are making good money and could even be making more than your spouse at this point, but you sometimes, I feel like when I work with people, they'll say, I don't know where my money's going. So the first step sometimes is to understand where your money's going. And then start to prioritize discretionary expenses. And so that girl on Netflix, I love her, the Caro, I can't ever say her name right, the Caro Mundo, that you take everything out of your closet and then you say, does this bring me joy? And if it doesn't, you get rid of it. Like I totally did that last year. But I like to take that same approach to how you spend money. And so what I mean by that is it's easy to say, oh my gosh, I went to Starbucks 4 times in a month. Like that's stupid. I'm getting rid of that. Well, if you have a 4-month-old and you need caffeine and you're going to savor that Starbucks, go get the Starbucks. But if you're going to get the Starbucks and then walk around Target and spend $100 on stuff we don't need, that's where you might want to say, you know what, I'm not going to buy that. I'm not going to spend that. So I think when you look at discretionary spending, and I would encourage you when you do spend money, ask, is this going to bring me joy? The same way that you would if you're going to get rid of stuff in your closet, like she recommended. So if it's going to take your kids to the zoo or you're going to do something fun, I don't think that that's bad discretionary expenses. If so I'm going to get back to, it talks about debt repayment. I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. So the next thing to do is to set a goal. And I think Erica's probably talked to y'all because I've talked to her before and I've seen her Facebook post, but it's to be like a vision board. But when you set a goal, it's not just, I'm going to buy a bigger house, but what does that house look like? Where is it? What neighborhood? What, how many bedrooms? What's that look like? Be as specific as possible, because when you set a financial goal, the more specific you are, you're more willing and more able to actually hit that number, if that makes sense. The more we can touch it and feel it and see it, the more that we can do it. When it comes to retirement, I see most of y'all in retirement can feel really far away. And I plan a lot for people's retirement. And so until I was in my late 30s now, I didn't even really start thinking much about retirement. But I would encourage you to start thinking like, okay, if I build my Zaya income up, if I start building, what does that look like? Could I retire early? Could I retire in 20 years? What would that take? And so start to dream and spend some time dreaming about your goals, because the more you can spend time doing that, the more clarity you can have about how to achieve them. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. So the basis of financial planning now we'll go through, but if we want to have a goal, the first step is we need to protect the goal. And to do that, we have to manage risk. And so what is risk management? That's preparing for unexpected expenses, making sure if you couldn't work, you're protected, and make sure your family's covered if something happened to you or one of your spouses. Actually, managing risk is one of the most important things to financial planning. I've seen it in 2020. When we talked, the first step is an emergency fund. But what's surprising is I have a lot of doctor clients, and I tell them to have an emergency fund, and sometimes they don't. And they were, the government forced them to shut down their practices for 2 months. And a lot of them were scrambling on what to do. And so the first critical part of any good financial plan is to have an emergency fund. I usually recommend, honestly, my recommendations depend on each person's case, but a good rule of thumb is 6 months of living expenses. So living expenses, though, does not count Starbucks. So that's like your mortgage and your car payment and your electricity bill. Like those, I call them hell or high water. Like you gotta pay those. Shooting for 6 months of that is a good rule of thumb. So that could be different from everyone. If you have a steady income, I can sometimes go down to 2 or 3 months, especially if you're really trying to get out of some credit card debt or anything like that. I lean towards maybe 2 months of that and the rest snowballing into debt repayment, and then come back and circle back around to have a better emergency fund once you've paid down that debt. But so speaking about debt, because that's probably one of the number one questions I get with young families is that. And so here's first thing with debt is not all debt's bad and not all debt's created equally. So what I mean about that is like your mortgage is usually good debt. A car payment at a low interest rate usually isn't bad debt. Student loans usually can have a good interest rate. Oh, did I mark on that? Anyways, but things like credit cards and things like that, that's stuff we want to try to get rid of as really before you start any type of investment plan. And so again, starting that with a very judgment-free zone is how I approach it, but set a payoff deadline and just say, I want this paid off in 1 year. I want this paid off in 18 months. Look at a realistic budget. So again, look at what's going out, see what you can cut out. And then also while you're trying to pay off the debt, try to live on a cash only lifestyle. And what that means is don't be paying it off, but still using the credit card. Try not to use them while you're getting out of debt. So again, not all debt's bad, but trying to get out from under it, especially with you girls, if you're, live, y'all are building your Zaya businesses, and sometimes that takes capital. But also if you're getting a good month and your months increase, instead of spending that money, if you do have some credit cards or things you want to pay off, just throw it all at that first is what I would do. So,
real quick before
yes.
you, we have a question about savings account, which I think is really good. It's basically, is that the best safe place to keep it where it can grow extra money?
For the emergency fund, should that go into savings, or is there a place it can earn money while it's sitting?
It's a great question. Always emergency funds, I want them in savings accounts or what's called money market accounts, which is pretty much a glorified savings account. The reason why is you don't want that invested where it could potentially go down when you would need that money. So also, I'm a certified financial planner, but I'm also a spender. So like, I like to feel broke. Like that's the joke. Like my husband and I need to feel broke sometimes. So we have our savings at a different bank than when we bank. And so we just siphon money over there. And I actually don't even know the balance of it sometimes. Like he has it on a spreadsheet so I can check it at any time. But that also helps me move money over and not see it. So, are you okay?
Awesome. Okay, so people are also talking about a lot of really great books, and I know you've recommended a few to us too that are great. But one question that was messaged to me separately was how to implement these changes if your spouse isn't on board. Like, do you have some tips and tricks about getting them on board? You might be getting to that, but I wanted to put that plug in there because I feel like I'm guessing that she's not the only one.
No, that's like let me think about that for a second. That's a great question. And I swear I'm not plugging myself right now, but I will say that sometimes having it come from someone else is the best way for things to come. So it's kind of like when you go to therapy and like the therapist can say the same thing you were like telling your husband, and then he's like, that's a great idea. And you're like, I told you like 5 times, like the same thing, you know? So it's sometimes, I think if you can get them to that advisor meeting, you can find a great advisor and they might need a guy advisor, or they might need to empower him to find that. But sometimes when they hear it from someone else, they might be more apt to do it.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Keep them coming. Okay. So next, for a lot of y'all, Erica mentioned you work full-time and this is the side hustle, but this might end up being your only hustle at some point, for better words. You know, this is hopefully retire out of your current job. And so a lot of the planning and the benefits, I work a lot with entrepreneurs, and the great thing about entrepreneurs is unlimited income. You own your own business, but you also have to do it all yourself. You don't usually have like a 401k that you can just put in and sign up, or have health insurance or disability insurance and things like that. So the next step to risk management is understanding what's your most important asset. And a lot of times when I ask that question, clients will be like, well, my house, or it's usually your house, but like my house or my investment account. But really your ability to earn an income is your most important asset. Like if you're making even $100,000 a year, if you take that out 40 years, it's over $4 million with no inflation. So your ability to generate income is your most important asset. And so the great thing about y'all's business is it builds up residually. So that's a great thing, but also for your spouse and other our partners, making sure that they have a proper disability coverage through work or on their own is really important to make sure you have on protection. The next thing on protection is to make sure that you're properly covered with life insurance. It's not something we usually want to talk about, but just making sure that you have coverage to protect your family in the event something happened to you or your spouse, especially if you have a mortgage or you have kids and family that depends on you. And so to recap risk, emergency fund, pay down debt, and insurance planning, making sure you have all of those. So the next step in financial planning is growing your wealth. And that's the fun part. That's what we like to talk about. And so not to, like, the last thing I ever want to do is stereotype women because I'm a woman. But women usually like, in general, women like security. And so what I usually find with the women I work with, even successful entrepreneurs, is we will have way more money in savings than even like the 6 months expenses. We'll just have a lot of money in savings because it makes us feel safe. Like when my savings account is good, I sleep better. That's just, I think, like mama bear instincts women. But we also, and there's statistics to back this up, but 60, actually, I don't know where I put my statistic on this. So we'll just make up a statistic. No, I'm just kidding. But I read something that most men will invest faster than women will. I think it was like 76% women, or 60%. If you had the same amount of money, like men would invest faster. So here's the thing is women were also conditioned subconsciously from like birth probably to say that men understand investments more than we do. Like that is like some like, you know, TV shows and everything. The males did the investing. We also see that most males are financial advisors. So we feel like, oh my gosh, it's complicated. I don't understand it. I don't know what to do. So again, I'm just going to delegate that to my husband. So I'm not telling you need to go buy a book or you need to turn into Warren Buffett and understand PE ratios in the market and all of that. If you could just understand one thing, is that since 1926, if you invested money and you left it in there for 15 years, it made money 100% of the time. Mic drop now. No, I'm just kidding. And if you took 5 years, 87% of the time, it made money. And so it doesn't have to, I think, and not to pick on the guys, but I'm going to in this call, men like to overcomplicate things. So it doesn't have to be this very complicated thing. Just understand that 100% of the time with the 15-year period, people made more than where they started. And so this doesn't mean you need to start watching CNBC every day, anything like that. If you have a 401k currently, I can't actually tell you what advice and pick funds, but generally some great advice is to pick a fund that they might say is like a target date or a life cycle, and it'll say a year to it. My recommendation is to pick the furthest year you can. So it might be the 2050 or 2055. And what that'll do is it invests in a lot of different sectors, but it does it for you. And those are really great funds. And you just kind of sit it and forget it. Again, I do have a job because I financial advise. So I would recommend working with the financial advisor. But even if you don't have to be an expert or read a ton about it. Just pick a fund. We in our office work with a lot of millionaires, and we manage 250 million of assets, but we'll have people drive up in a Honda that have worked at like the power company for 40 years and they have over $2 million. And they're like, I don't know how I got it. And it was literally because they put the money in there and they never touched it. So anyways, it is a little more complicated than that, but generally.
A couple questions.
Yes.
What percent of our income would you say to put into savings?
It's a really great question. And there's slides that Northwestern makes that tell you that, and I don't include them. And here's why, because I'm not a like percentage person, because it's really different for everyone. And so what I mean by that is we're at all different stages and different levels. So I'm paying $22,000 for daycare right now with 2 kids. So in a few years, I'll be able to save $22,000 more. But right now, my capacity percentage wise might be a little different than it's going to be in the future. So I don't prescribe to a percentage. But if you had to, like, you're like, Kristan, you have to say a percentage or we'll like never talk to you again. 20%. 20% is kind of that rule. Like if you can be targeting that. But again, everyone I meet with is different. If your goal is to retire in your early 50s, you're going to need to save more than 20%. If your goal is to never retire and you're going to work till you're 75, you probably don't need to save 20%. So it really just kind of depends. Do you have a big pension, or does your husband have a big pension and they plan on staying there forever? We might dial that down, but it's really customizable.
And Kristan, when you're saying 20%, you're talking into all different types of saving buckets, right?
Yes.
You're not just talking about your savings account. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Like your whole, like your income in general.
Yes. Okay. So
that doesn't include for our taxes in the business we're in with Zaya. So it should be, you should save some for your taxes to take out and save 20 of your take home. Is that right?
Again, it just depends on your situation. So I couldn't say that, but that is a good rule of thumb. Yeah.
Okay. So another question, where do you find a financial planner and how much do they typically cost?
It's a great question. Can I come back to that? Because I was
Yes.
Yeah. I'll come back to that. Or actually, I can just go down to that slide. Here we go. Finding a financial professional to help you along your journey. So when I would look for one, I would make sure that they're going to help you with more than just setting up an investment account or setting up some products. So make sure that they're going to do savings, managing debt, risk, investing, taxes, hook you up with a good attorney for wills and things like that. So looking for a broad planner is important. So the other thing personally, because I am a CFP, certified financial planners are held to a higher standard. It's called a fiduciary standard, which means that we have to put our clients' best interests first, which you would think all advisors would do, but like that's literally the standard. So I think looking for someone with CFP marks is what it's called, or CFP behind their name is important as well. And then look at the company that they are with. So what's the financial strength of that company? If they're just solo, that's not that they're bad by any means. There's a lot of solo people, but they usually don't have as much oversight or compliance department kind of looking over their shoulder, making sure they're not messing up. So I tend to kind of go with better, well-known named places. Did that answer your question?
I think people wanted to know also like what it costs.
Yeah.
Maybe
so
even like set an appointment, because I know like with an accountant, you're paying by the hour from the moment you open your jaws.
Yeah, great question. So there is usually fee-based financial planners, and then there's planners that don't charge a fee, but would earn either usually a percentage of the assets or any type of commission from that relationship. So I can do both. Usually when I meet with a young couple, I'm not going to charge a fee to do a plan, but usually there is a recommendation that we can put that'll help compensate me from either a fund family or from Northwestern or other insurance companies we recommend for that as well. So it doesn't have to always be fee only. And I would say most planners for an initial consultation aren't going to charge a fee for that. And so okay, great. So I think I missed one here. So with the other thing with Zaya income is y'all are having to pay taxes on it. And it's important. Again, I'm not too concerned if you ever owe taxes. That means you're making money, which is good. But a lot of times your accountant will recommend that you open like what's called a SEP IRA. Or a Roth IRA. And so those are really good vehicles for retirement. I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty of the differences, but that sometimes you have to be careful because the things that'll save you taxes today might not be the best thing to put all of your money into. And here's why. So a SEP IRA is what your accountant might recommend. And he'll say, well, if you put money in here, you're not going to owe as much taxes. But you can't touch that money until you're 59 and a half, so 60, without a 10% penalty. And then even when you get to 60, then you have to pay taxes on it. So it can be good today, but it could lock up a lot of money that you can't access later. So my saying is I always don't let the tax tail wag the dog. Working with a good planner to like come up with what your goals are. Because if your goals are potentially to buy a home, we don't want to put home money in a SEP IRA. Because I had a client cash one out the other day and it was like, it just makes me feel sick when people do it because it's like, oh my gosh, you're going to pay 40% of that account to the government. So making sure, I think, again, when you pick an advisor, I always try to talk to my clients, especially high income earner clients. I want to know their CPA and I want to talk to them. So making sure that these two people understand the plan is important. So probably caused a lot more questions, but again, why to work with professionals. So, so I went to this. So again, I'll wrap up. I said 30 minutes and I think I'm at 38 minutes. So, self-care applies to finances too, but it is true. Again, when you, especially women, we sometimes feel shame for a lot of things. We can get into that in another call, but when you take control of your money, that's a form of self-care. So again, I think sometimes I've worked with women and men that are super high income earners, or I've worked with older women in their 70s that have inherited $3-4 million, but they're still afraid to spend any money because they don't understand what they have. And so the more you can educate yourself, empower yourself, meet with an advisor with your husband, and you can even just sit in on the high level meetings once or twice a year. But knowing you have a plan, and when you have a really good savings plan, you can have a really great spending plan. And like I said, like I have some of my favorite clients that we've like, they call us and they're like, Kristan, we want to buy a boat. And I was like, buy the boat. And they're like, no, we can't buy a $60,000 boat. And I'm like, your retirement looks good. Your kids' college looks good. You don't have any debt. Buy the boat. The kids are only young once. So when you feel that empowerment and you have a good plan, you don't feel the guilt around spending money. So I hope you'll hear my 2-year-old screaming in the back. It's fine. It's fine. Okay, so last thing, some of y'all are taking notes. I recommend just commit in the next 24 hours, one thing you can do to start on your financial plan. And then also in your calendar, mark 30 days from now, just pick one goal you would like to do in the next 30 days. And your 24-hour goal could just even be like schedule time to talk to the husband or look up financial advisors in the area, anything like that. And then my own personal plug is I work nationwide. I already was before COVID about 60 to 70% virtual meetings. Now I'm 95%. So I have clients all over the United States. So I'd love to meet with any of you guys, especially just for, an initial consultation, 30-minute phone call or Zoom meeting to understand your goals and see if we can put together a plan.
Yay. Okay, so a couple questions. Sorry, I love that.
Yeah, great.
Okay, so how do we get a hold of you?
Been great if I ended with that slide. No, yeah. So, Eric, if I could email if I could email you, because I wanted to send out a budget too. So if I could email you a budget and then you could just email that out to the group, and then I'll have a link to my schedule where you could schedule a meeting.
Okay. Perfect. So a couple other questions, and I love that you guys are messaging me these, because if you ever don't feel confident putting them in the chat for everybody to see, like, your name is confidential. One of the gal wants to know if she doesn't feel like she has a lot of money to work with, should she still meet with a financial advisor?
Yeah, I think at least for everyone that I meet with, I'll be honest in the beginning, if I can help just, and most advisors feel this way, if we can help just a little bit, they'll meet with you. So even if it's not to set up accounts or things like that, even if it's just to come up with a debt strategy, most advisors would give a few minutes, 30 minutes to do that. So
yeah, knowledge is power, right?
Mm-hmm.
And these gals on the call are going to be like your next top 5 in MLM. So, okay. Do you have a book that you recommend about having a small business and keeping financial records, or any type of small business, kind of maybe entrepreneur books?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. So let me ask some of my female advisors. The one book that's coming at me first that I usually recommend for entrepreneurs to read is called The E-Myth. And that actually, I don't know if that applies to an MLM, but it might. But what that actually talks about is setting up your business, of how you get out of business too. Like, so it's those ideas, like you set it up, but you're already thinking of yourself getting out of it at some point too. So it's just a really good book. It's an E-Myth because it's like the entrepreneur myth. So it's a good book I've recommend. Let me see if any of my girls have other ones, and I'll send it to you.
Awesome. Other questions, ladies? This is your time. Now, was this helpful? You guys feel like you took away nuggets no matter where you're at in your financial plan? I did also, Kristan, because I know you weren't watching the chat, a lot of women said that they actually were the person doing the financial planning, which made me super happy.
Great. Yeah. I watch the chat talk. No, I'm so passionate about women and money, and women in general, especially what we've seen with the job losses and everything we've seen. And I'm, a lot of y'all are mamas with me. I mean, my daughter was out of school for 23 weeks. A lot of y'all are doing homeschooling and daycaring and all of the things. So I feel you. That's why I didn't want to see. I mean, at one point last year, I was like, I can't do another thing. Like, you can't put another thing on my plate. And so that's why I don't want you to feel like that with finances. But I would argue that it's one of the most important things that you do, and that you do sit down with someone and talk about it.
Yeah. And then from the marriage standpoint, obviously we're not marriage counselors, nor do we want to go down that route, but I do feel like this was a big game changer. I mean, we started this, we've been financial planning for 9 years now. And I'm just like, if we wouldn't have, I feel like we always would have been butting heads on finances, but now we like know our path. And it's funny because I actually chose a woman financial planner because I really wanted somebody who was also the head of like her household in that game. Cause my husband's a spender. I know a lot of you guys kept writing, my husband's a spender, I'm the saver. Like, so I'm like, okay, not another freaking fishing pole, dude. Like, how many do you need? You have one hand to fish with. Like, you can't hold 10. So, but I feel like Kristan is kind of like that mediator where she kind of can come in and be like, okay, well, how is this, working towards your goals or whatever? And I don't have to say it. So it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, mine is too. That's again why we scroll it away. So
I love this. Okay. I feel like, did we get all the questions? I don't want to miss any in the chat, but I feel like we're good. Oh, I love this. Okay. Well, ladies, I hope that this was helpful. And thank you so much, Kristan. We seriously appreciate you, your time, your energy, and your efforts tonight. I know you got a little 4-month-old baby to go probably feed and get down, and a toddler.
He slept the whole time. Let's just, that that was not gonna happen. So this was a win.
We would have taken you with the baby nursing as well. So
Thanks.
get it. These ladies have been on calls with me nursing my kid too. It's fine.
Yeah, I figured worst case. Well, cool. Well, I appreciate all of y'all. And if I can help, like I said, I'll send Erica my info. I'd love to talk with all of you. So feel free to schedule a time, like a 30-minute chat on my calendar. I'd love to help any of you guys. So
They said share your digits.
yeah,
I'll get it.
I will.
Okay. Bye, ladies.
All right, bye.